So I was sitting here thinking about um, the time we lived in Puerto Rico, and so I thought I'd just put it on video if anybody wants to watch it. We moved there when I was 8 years old. My mom had been dating this man, and he asked her to marry him. So she said yes, and so he said, "We'll come to Puerto Rico and we'll live there and get married. Or we'll get married and live there." And so she sold all her stuff and packed us kids up, and we flew to Puerto Rico. And it was such a different environment that I'd ever known. We left Utah in December and landed in Puerto Rico in December. And as we're driving to Mayagüez from San Juan, there's monkeys swinging from the trees. Just like, it was amazing. It was really amazing. And there were so many people and people in the street. And in our town of Mayagüez, there was like a town square. And in the morning, they may have had like coffee vendors and stuff like that. But they also had, I don't know if they had liquor vendors out there or what, but there were drunk people. And so as the day went on, there were more and more. And at night, we were never out there then. So we really didn't go. We went to shop anyway. So but they would get really drunk and then they would get out in traffic and start directing traffic. And of course, they never were directing it in the proper way. So there's tie-ups and all this. It was kind of funny. But, they did. My parents got married and we lived up on Buena Vista, which is a mountain just right up out of Mayagüez. And we went to Seventh-day Adventist school. We started out at American school, but it was too rowdy. My parents are like, nope. So they put us in a Seventh-day Adventist school, which wasn't so bad. I mean, we had a religion class, but I'd been raised a certain way, so I'm like, no, it's this person, or And so I don't know. I didn't really drink a lot of their religion in, but they were good people. And of course, I had one of the teachers that I swear was a spawn of Satan, but everybody else was awesome. Yeah, teachers and me, that's a whole different edition. Anyway, but when we lived on Buena Vista, there was our apartment. We lived upstairs of a house, what it was, and there was a downstairs apartment. And then back in the backyard, just beyond the hedge or whatever, there was a hospital, like a good sized hospital, probably one of Mayagüez's hospitals. And there's a big, yard between us and these beautiful trees and these really interesting, weird looking fruits and mangoes. And it was just amazing. The trees and, everything seemed to grow something. And then up past their ways was our school, which was kind of cool. And there was a pool that we could use there, and they had tennis courts. And it wasn't like an upper crust school. Maybe in Puerto Rico standards, it might have been a little more, but it wasn't like a rich school. It was just, there was stuff there. I guess maybe it was an older school. It wasn't a brand new school. Anyway, so there's me, Stacy, Julie, and Todd. And of course there was a house next door and they had kids. And so we'd form up these posses, or the girls downstairs is actually who we ran with. And so we would and right next to our place, our apartment building, there was this, it would be like half an acre, okay? It was square though. And it was just solid jungle. It was just, and before it, there wouldn't be anything, this patch of jungle, a little space, and then our apartment thing, right? So it was and it was so cool because we would go in there and we'd play and you could get lost. I mean, you could look up and see the sun, but it was almost like being in a cornfield, just smooshed in. And it wasn't just that. I mean, it was trees and this and that. And of course, the sugarcane looks like corn. So that may have been it too. But, oh my gosh, they had spiders in there and just, oh my gosh, crazy stuff. So that was a lot of fun to play in there, which we did. And then we just took to running. We played around the hospital. We went to people's rooms and said hi to them. And, we could tell if we were bothered, we'd leave. We weren't causing a problem. And we'd go down to the restaurant and they would give us something to eat, like a thing of Jello or something. And I heard this lab and it had wax, hot wax in a vat. And so the guy was showing me how I could put my hand in there. It was pretty cool. Mom said, you guys need to quit playing at the hospital. But it was fun. And they had a nurses, nursing school. And so it was kind of like a building with rooms in it attached. So they were always there and they were fun. And they're like, older girls. And so that was kind of fun. But anyway, I think a lot of them were Seventh-day Adventists, though. But anyway, then there was this big hillside because we're on a mountain, right? And so you go down the mountain. Of course, it's not like Pikes Peak, but it's considered a mountain, and it was high. But anyway, as a pack of kids, we ran through that jungle, just going down to see where it would take us, and got out of that and into this big, and there were tons of banana trees, tons of them. And we got into this open field and it was just jungle, and then, so we kept going and there was this little house and it wasn't a fancy house at all. It did have like kind of a really cool old Chevy or GTO or something like that. Not super tricked out, but nice. He keeps it clean. And so we went up to the house and we said hi to them, and maybe we were looking for a drink of water. I don't know. And they were so nice to us. And my sister Julie's with us. And when she was a little girl, from the get-go, she had this long blonde hair. And I tell you what, she was the pass to anything. When they see that hair, they just want to touch her hair. But they gave us water, said they had food for us, and they had pigs. They showed us how they did that. And it was just this, oh my gosh, just one of my most treasured memories. Come on in, kids. We'll show you what, and I'll treasure them. And so every now and then it's like, should we go see the Puerto Ricans? And so we would go down and visit. And my mom was always like, who are these Puerto Ricans? I don't know if we ever walked her down there, but they were very nice, very safe environment, not a problem at all. And then we moved to like a subdivision, and they were building houses next to it, more houses. But there was some kids. Tito and was the older brother, and oh gosh, he used to call my dad Mr. Malott. Mr. Malott. I got to think of his name because we adored him. Anyway, we would run. There was cane because it was in subdivision. They kind of built into farmland. So there were cane fields just, I don't know what direction, north of us. Anyway, so we would all pile up. Sometimes we'd bring a sandwich and Javier. Anyway, so we'd all load up some sandwiches and we'd head out and we'd run through those sugarcane fields. And of course, you snap one off and you start chewing it, and it's sweet. You can just sit and chew that thing all day. You'll rip off, and then start chewing it down again. And so that's what we did. And up and down hills and adventures. And it was pretty sweet. It was really sweet. Oh my gosh. Stacy thought Tito was cool, and Javier had these bottle bottom glasses. Say Mr. Malott. Oops. Anyway, that was a lot of fun. Went to the beaches. The beach was Boca Raton Beach. Now there was one called Crash Boat Beach, but you don't want to swim there. My sister Stacy got baptized there. Our church baptizes at 8 years old. This story has to come out, if nothing else. So our church was so small. We actually were part of a non-denominational at the Air Force Base. So we didn't even have our own little branch yet. And it was time for Stacy to get baptized. And so a couple, my dad and then one of the men or whatever. And then I think the missionaries may have been there and maybe not yet. Anyway, so we went to Crash Boat Beach. My mom had pictures of this. I do not know where they are, but the pictures just say it all. Anyway, they're standing there and they're getting ready to, and you can see them in front of you, but behind them there's this huge wave. They don't see it. And then so you see that in one picture. The next picture, there's like legs sticking out this way and that way. And so you get the idea, they got wiped out. They went through that 3 times to get her properly baptized. Hysterical. Anyway, so that was pretty fun. But anyway, Boca Raton Beach was our beach, and we'd go there and, we'd be there all day. Tuna fish sandwiches never taste as good unless they have sand in them. That is a proper way to make a tuna fish sandwich. Take my word for it. Oh my gosh. And I think there may have been suntan lotion. I don't think there was SPF then. I don't know. But we just ran in that sun and just had the best time. And, the little crabs, we'd sit at the edge and the tide would come in and there's these little crabs and they'd burrow really quick. And so we would sit there and try to catch them before they get down. And those suckers were fast. And so, that was entertaining for the longest time. I remember getting caught in a tide roll and, just spins you around, round, and round. You don't know what's up or down. And you're like, and you get out. So I got caught in one of those. It made a believer out of me that ocean was more powerful than I am. One time I was of course, we didn't have goggles then either. I think they did have goggles in 1970, but, like underwater, like snorkel guys probably wore them. So anyway, I'm under and, our eyes were always so red when we got home along with our bodies. And I saw this stingray just go past. It was far away from me. It was probably 20, 30 feet from me. But it was so majestic watching it, just fly away. It was beautiful. And one time Dad took us to Ponce, which if I had a vacation house or a villa or something, it would be in Ponce. Beautiful. One of the most beautiful. I felt like my soul anchored to the earth there for some reason. And it's always been kind of a sacred thing for me. And we were all there for the same amount of time, but something happened to me in Ponce. But anyway, we stayed there and we went out on this boat to Phosphorescent Bay. And so I don't know if it's a time of the month or what it was, but you've seen the images on TV with the wave coming in and you put your hands and it just all this luminescence. And we went out on a glass bottom boat and got to see it under there. And he, pick up a bucket and we could see him in the bucket. It was really quite special. It was beautiful. It was just amazing, magical. We have lightning bugs here and, they're a little magical, but it was just beautiful. So we lived there for 3 years. And, just my mom, she was cautious about us, but it was just a different time. And so we just got to run and do and go. And like stuff kids get into. As I was saying, next to us, they were building houses. And it was really weird because they built like the front, the top and bottom of the house, all 3 sides, but no front on it yet. Okay, And but they had scaffolding that would hold up that second floor. And so on the weekends they were gone, and so us kids are down there playing. We always were playing at that stupid construction site. And I remember one time we were making mud patties out of lye. Well, we didn't know what lye was. And so my dad came to, what are you making out of? Somebody must have told. And he comes down there and he sees it's lye and he's just like, oh my gosh, and all upset. And you're lucky if your hands don't fall off in the morning. That you won't have any hands in the morning. That was the longest night of my life. I was terrified. terrified that I would not have hands in the morning. And I woke up in the morning and there were my hands, and I have never been so happy to see my hands in my whole life. But anyway, we were jumping off the scaffolding onto the second floor of the house. And that's kind of fun, back and forth, back and forth. It should have been somewhat safe. And anyway, I don't know if I kicked off too hard, but the scaffolding slid back. Mike, can you not till I'm done? I won't take forever. It's okay. Anyway, jumping back and forth. And so I jumped off, kicked away a little too hard. And so I did not make it to the second floor. I went straight down. And my head hit a rock and knocked me out. And my left ankle hit the rock. And so I'm passed out. And eventually I come to, and, somebody's has already run down to get Mom and Dad. They're not quite there yet. And I asked what happened. It knocked the beamers out of my head. I had a special spiritual experience, not death or anything like that, but I had an experience that really connected for me in my early 30s. So it was a treasure laid up. But aside from that, I looked down and my ankle looked like this. Instead of, this being your toes or these being your toes, that being your heel, it kind of went like this to the side. So it was L-shaped going inward. And I looked down and I was like, that ain't right. And so I said it. Now, I have a real problem with things like bodies not looking the way they're supposed to. You see people like arms all jacked up weird, and it's just like, ugh, kind of makes me nauseous. So I set my foot, and then my parents come up and they're worried, and then they're mad because here we are jumping on and off houses, In retrospect, maybe it wasn't such a good idea. But anyway, so we get back down to the house. Of course, they're half carrying me, and Mom gets a big pan of water, cold water with ice cubes. And so, Dad's like, well, just get it in there. It'll bring the swelling down. And so I've got it in there. It's freezing. And I'm like, Dad, it's broken. He says, nah, you just sprained it. You're okay. I'm like, no, Dad, it's broken. I was like, look, and I picked my foot up and I tapped it on the left side and it went like this again. And he's like, oh. Then I had to set that ankle twice. So the second time wasn't as but I lived through it. And then, so we went up to that hospital at Buena Vista. And of course, the ER doc did not speak English. And I had broken Spanish, I don't know what Mom had. She couldn't roll her R's. She can't roll her R's. But I can. Very, very much. I love my mom. And it's funny to hear her. But anyway, and then I would always go. I swear I earned probably 80% of the slaps I got upside the head. Guaranteed. Anyway, so they figured out that it was broken. They put a cast on. ER doc puts a cast on. And I go home and I get propped up in the bed. And my toes are starting to turn purple. They had to take the cast off and recast it. But I got my leg up in the bed and all calm. And then my dad in the bedroom, he was a burper. But it wasn't like just rude little he was an artisan. And so all of a sudden I hear burp. And when he's doing that, we have an earthquake. The earthquake lasted the amount of time that burp did. It was like he burped and it shook the earth. But yeah, that was crazy. What a day that was. That was crazy. But we used to fly back to the United States. We probably flew across the Bermuda 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times before. In fact, the last time we were coming to the United States, Mom decides to finally tell us about the Bermuda Triangle. We've been flying over all this time. So I'm not really into Bermuda Triangle stories because, ain't so bad. Maybe I have to fly over it 100 more times. Anyway, Puerto Rico is just so amazing. Our church, we started a branch. Um, we were meeting in a YMCA and very humble. But we started a branch in Mayagüez. There's one, I'm sure, in San Juan. And anyway, we got Mayagüez started, and they sent in missionaries, and they'd only rotate in there for like a month. They wouldn't leave them in very long. A breaking new area, I think, is kind of a deal. And religious wise, Puerto Rico is pretty Catholic, or Santa whatever, and Seventh Day Adventist. They were there. So it was this older kind of religion culture, which is kind of, So I think they only kept him in there for a month for that reason. But we had so much contact with them. I mean, they were part of our family, and it was really nice. Not part of our family that they lived with us, but dinners with us, and just keep them kind of close to us all. Our branch did, and I remember one of the guys in the branch had a studio in his house, and he was making an album. And so he was making an album. I don't know the name of it. Something Beautiful Puerto Rico or something like it's something Puerto Rico. And so he needed some backup on a song. So Mom said we could do it. So as kids went in and recordings, we were like, whatever. That was kind of crazy. Oh my gosh. My dad, he still takes drives to this day. I don't think there's a price of gas that's going to be too high to make this man stop taking rides. And so we would take these long drives, and I mean, back little who knows where road. And so we got to really be immersed in the culture and the people. And of course, he'd stop and get us an ice cream or something, or a popsicle, not an ice cream, a popsicle. And so, we would get to interact on a local level and see just the most beautiful island. We got to see it all. And except for one part, that forest over where the chupacabra lives, we never went there. But we got to go and just do all that stuff. And he'd get driving, and we'd say, drive like a Puerto Rican, Dad, drive like a Puerto Rican. And he'd sit back and he'd go like this, and everything. As kids, we'd play dead man. And so there's 4 of us kids in the backseat of like a Nova, right? And so we'd all play dead. So we're sitting in the seat. If he turns this way, we're like, I'll go in this way, and he turns the other way, I'll flop this way, So at some point, you're going to have the weight of everyone else on you. The middle's the best part. Anyway, everybody wants the window. So that's kind of how you work that out. But yeah, drive like a Puerto Rican, and we get to intersections, he loses patience, like, go like this, like he's directing traffic from the car. But it was so much fun. When we went to that U.S. school or American school, we had to go past a mill, and they were still using oxen. So they'd have 2 oxen, one on each end, and they would just walk around this thing, and it was a big roller. It's just like a mill, like you see in the movies. It was interesting. I always felt so sorry for them, just going around in circles their whole life. God bless them. And then the sugarcane plants. I don't think it's the sugarcane plants. I think it was the rum plants. And they smelled so horrible. It smells like molasses. And it's just like, it's a deafening smell. Deafening smell. It is just like this unbelievable smell. It's not bad. Like I said, it's like molasses, but molasses is pretty rich and thick, and just the smell. And so it was, I hated going by those fields or those plants, because and there were, it's kind of like Wisconsin, in beer. So, but that was amazing. I loved being there, and I miss it. I spoke this language. And okay, so my mom married my new stepdad. We never met his family. Now, his daughters came to stay for a couple weeks, and we got to know them, and they were really cool. I always really liked them. Anyway, uh, but we never met his mom or dad, or didn't really know any of his story. And so when we finally came back to the U.S., of course, Dad was ahead of us, lining up his job in another state. And so Mom and his kids flew together, first from Mayagüez to San Juan on La Cucaracha airplane. It was the scariest ride of my life. It was like, "Arr!" Now, there may or may not have been a storm, but it still was pretty scary. And so we met my granddad, and then my grandma and grandpa. And, I was so dark from running, wild. And I tend to get darker anyway, 5% African American. Whoa. Uh, but it is for real. I'm honored. Anyway, so I get dark. And so I was dark. And so my grandma, she said she knew that there was adoptions in there, but she wasn't like fully clear on the timing. And so she just thought I was her little Puerto Rican child. And oh my gosh, she took me under her wing. That woman loved me. Yeah. She stood up to my mom on my behalf. Whoa. Yeah. She is a rancher's wife, Colorado. She wore slacks. She always had a nice shirt on. I mean, no, she always had clean clothes on. She fed cows every morning and had birds and just took care of that ranch with my grandpa. And I just was bowled over. Like, she was a miracle from God for me. And I always said, I don't know who I'm going to be or anything, but I want to be like my grandma. And so I fashioned my femininity after her, my work ethic after her, my down-to-earthness after her. And I always see, like, when you got to pay for air to put it in your tire, that, or, like people are buying water. And I just would always say, my grandma would be rolling over her grave. People are buying dirt and water and air. So that part of her, just this real, like, old common sense kind of thing. She let me start driving first time we were out there. Just a kid on a standard, transmission and an old farm truck. That's how I learned to drive. And I've driven a lot of different kind of vehicles. And I've just always loved driving. Anyway, that's Puerto Rico off the top of my head. There's so much more. We really lived there. And I was glad to be back in America when we came back. But my heart lives there. So that's Puerto Rico. Love you.